All right, y'all, before we start, because some of y'all be tripping, under the advice of counsel, I got to add that the views, thoughts, opinions that are expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone. They do not represent my employer. All right, let's go.
Because I was like, damn, do we really want to get into this discussion? Because if we get into this discussion right here, y'all.
Hey, what's up, y'all? We are back for another episode of Ridgemont Forest Finest, the podcast, and we are continuing our conversation over suicide in our children and our young adults. So we're going to move into this next segment, and I'm going to talk to Ms. Weaver, and I want to address a personal aspect of this topic and talk about your journey. So losing a child, especially to suicide, is probably one of the most heartbreaking experiences that a family can endure. Can you please share with our listeners the story of your son, Kameron, and the circumstances surrounding his unexpected passing?
Yes, thank you for having us today. Kameron was 29 years old, and he was living in Huntsville at the time. And so it was actually my first day back at work for that school year. I'm a mental health therapist, and we had just gotten through the morning meetings, and I got a text from him saying, I love you, but I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so processing that, Kameron, he was in the process of a bad breakup. He'd been with someone for several years and they were breaking up. And so when I first read the words, it was like, okay, he's having a bad day. You know, let me give him a call. And when I called him back, there was no answer. The phone just kept ringing. And so I went into just complete panic. And so about less than 5 minutes later, the phone rang again, and it was a Huntsville area code. And so I just dropped the phone and I just started screaming. And luckily my daughter Aaliyah was there, and she ran into the room and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't answer because I knew, I knew what was happening. So she answered, and they told her, "You need to get to Huntsville right away because Kameron shot himself." And so again, I just started to freak out. I was like, I can't drive to Huntsville. So, fortunately my dad is retired. So I called him and I was like, I need you right away. We need to go to Huntsville. And processing it, I told him what happened, and, he was saying, it's okay. We're going to pray about it. We're going to get there. But something in me knew, he was gone. And so I had asked had Aaliyah to ask the person who called to keep us posted and let us know where he was going. And we never got that information, but I started to kind of just call around, and I found out where he had been taken. And when I called the hospital, I asked the nurse, I said, is he at least okay? Is he at least stable? And she said, we're working, but how soon can you get here? And that was, to me, confirmation. And all I could visualize that if he wasn't gone, that he would be not himself. There would be some kind of, he would be hooked up to machines, or I would have to take care of him. And I knew that wouldn't be okay because I knew who he was and that he wouldn't be okay with that. So I was immediately faced with, do I pray that he's here or do I start to process that he's gone?
Right.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, I still don't have all the answers, to what exactly he was thinking. But like I said, he was going through a breakup, and he'd suffered with depression for quite some time because he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease his junior year of high school. But before we got that diagnosis, he had gone away to he was in ROTC. So he went away on a trip, and when he came back, all of his joints on both sides were hurting. So the day he came back, it started with his ankles were hurting. Then it progressed to his knees, and then his wrists and his hands started to swell. His fingers started to hurt. And so they started testing him for a bunch of things, and they were testing him for rheumatoid arthritis. And so, but his rheumatoid factor was negative. And then he started to have blood in his stool. And so that's how we determined that it was Crohn's and Crohn-related arthritis. And so, he was going into his senior year of high school, and they basically told him, we're going to treat you with this medication, but it could cause your liver to fail. It could cause you not to be able to have children. It could cause you to develop cancer, with long-term treatment. So as time progressed, he was on a medication where he had to go in and get an infusion. It was kind of like a chemotherapy. So it took 5 hours every 6 to 8 weeks for him to do this. He had several Crohn's bouts, and so he was hospitalized. At one point, we're talking about going in. And with Crohn's, if you go in and start to remove blockages and parts of the bowels, scar tissue forms around that. And then, so sometimes people lose the majority of their digestive system because of it. And so, he was dealing with that. He was dealing with starting his college journey, finding himself, because he always wanted to be a police officer, or, he was very athletic. And so he started not being able to do those things because of the illness. And so that really took a toll. And then I was also going through a divorce, at that time. And so unfortunately, the relationship with his dad was very tumultuous. At one point they got into a big argument and he left home. So, it was just a lot of different factors that were building up, but nothing that really prepared me for that day. We talked about suicide, and we were, there were times where it came, close to he had those thoughts. And so we talked about a plan, and our agreement was that whenever he was feeling down, he would come to me, and we would talk about it. And just within a month of it, I guess 3 months of it happening, we were looking for him a therapist, and he reached out to a couple people, but unfortunately, because of his insurance, and then also we were in the middle of COVID during this time, because it was July 13th, 2020. And so that was another factor, the isolation because of COVID, and, and so he wasn't able to connect with anyone, but I told him, I said, if I need to, I'll pay out of pocket.
Right.
And you can use my EAP for the benefits to find someone until we find someone that, utilizes your insurance. And so later, in looking through his things, I did find sticky notes of different therapists he'd reached out to, and notes. So he was in the process of doing that, but he wasn't able to secure anyone. So I think that was really hard for me to know that he was looking. He was trying. And then, he told me, and I asked him, I said, "Are you having thoughts?" And he said, "No, I'm okay." And I said, "Well, what about the therapy?" He's like, "Mom, you're my therapist."
Because you are a mental health therapist.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, "I don't care, day or night, whatever's going on, you called, I'll pick up."
Right.
And, and he did, when things were happening, I may get a call at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we would talk. And he would be okay, and and we would hang up. So as I'm processing that, I've told myself these past 3 years that I had no idea that we were to that point. But I guess, in all honesty, I did, I suspected that may be a possibility. But because he was always so honest with me, I thought that it wouldn't happen.
Right.
And so, I'm sorry, I know.
No, please, just talk.
Yeah, so it's just been, I don't know exactly why, but I do know that with his job, he worked in Huntsville. He was one of the only young male African Americans. It was a struggle for him to be a probation officer and realizing that we're not rehabilitating people.
Yeah, us.
Yeah, we're kind of setting them up for failure, because he talked about, Mom, they have to come in and they have to pay these fees, and then they can't get jobs because they're felons. And so he was really troubled by that, and he was in the process of wanting to switch careers. And he, both, because, Avis and I are both therapists, he talked about how he could potentially join us. So he had gone and he'd registered for classes, and he was going to do the route of nursing, because he'd always kind of talked about potentially looking into nursing. And so he was going to do psychiatric nursing.
Okay.
So he'd actually register for the classes and everything. But again, COVID kind of happened right at that time. So he withdrew from the classes, and he said, I'm just going to focus on with work, because he was kind of struggling with like keeping up with the workload, too, exactly, and all of that. So he backed out, but that was the plan. And so I think that was the reality for me. I thought because he was planning a future,
right?
Because we were talking about starting a business together, because he was always pushing us. He was like, you guys need to go into private practice.
Yeah.
And so we were going to make this a family business. So I thought, that he had a vision of what his future was going to look like. So it really just took the rug from under me when I realized that he was also still contemplating not being able to move on.
So I want you to like kind of talk about, if you're able to, your immediate emotional response, and then how your family coped with what happened once you realized that it was too late.
Yeah, quite honestly, like I said, I went into just shock, one, that my child was gone, two, beating myself up, because how could I know? How could I not know that he was at this point? And so then the shame kicked in, and the guilt of processing, because, I got pregnant with him when I was 15, had him at 16. So, the contemplating, was I the best mom that I could have been for him, and the regret of not always knowing the right things to do. And again, like the relationship, staying in a marriage that I needed to have left so long, but unfortunately hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
And I knew I was suffering, but I didn't realize how badly my kids were suffering. And so a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, anger, anger, and just our family was going through so much at that time too, because of cancer diagnosis, surgeries, and other things, and just kind of thinking, was I distracted,
right?
And did I not see exactly what he was going through? But I realize now that he truly got to the point where he didn't see a way out, because he knew, Avis and I were my dad, he talked to my dad once a week. He talked to us, and we were the people that he went to when things were struggling, but he didn't communicate with us what he was thinking. And then the ex-girlfriend called me the day of, and she was telling me that he was reaching out to her like as this was supposed to happen, because he went to work as normal that day. But at 10 o'clock, he finished that court. He went back and he asked his boss, could he take the day off? And so I got that message at 11 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, about 10:30 and 11 o'clock. He was pronounced gone at the hospital. So it was really like an hour span, and it wasn't a full-blown note with an explanation. He was just telling me goodbye, and that he loved me and he was tired. But he could have very easily called, like he had done so many times before. And so I've had to wrap myself around, because again, like I said, I went into that immediate guilt, like why, what did I do that made this happen, and why didn't he call me that time, so and then with my family as a whole, again, and Avis is here, so I'll let her share her story, but I know that she also dealt with a lot of guilt, because she was going through things at the time, and she felt that if the focus had not been on her, then maybe we would have seen what was going on with him. And then my dad, he was just saying he was my best friend.
Right.
Why didn't he call me? How did I not know? So, so it's been tough, and our family, thank you. Our family has taken a big hit from that. And then we're also, to be honest, we're still recovering.
Absolutely.
3 years, and just how the way that we interact with each other, and the way, because in my suffering, I can't necessarily, because Avis is my best friend,
right?
But I can't necessarily go to her and unload all of this on her, because she loved him just as much as I did. It's funny because, yes, we're siblings, and we have nieces and nephews, and of course you love them, but with us, it's truly like we're co-parents in raising our children, and so we love so hard with our children that, that's another layer. And then also Avis and Kameron were about 10 years
apart.
8 years apart. And so growing up,
Yeah.
she was like, he was
That's
like
his
her little
sister.
brother.
Yeah,
And they were,
yeah.
you know, so they had more of a sister brother
Mhm.
relationship.
Mhm.
And then even though I'm only 8 years older than Avis, our relationship was kind of mother daughter
Right.
relationship.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of dual relationships happening. So it's just been really tough because and then it's very lonely and isolating because even though I'm around people who may have lost children, no one lost their children to suicide.
Right.
And you know, I remember going to Bo's Place, which is a grief support group for parents, and I remember being in that group and not being able to get the full experience of the group because I was so ashamed to say that my child had taken his life because there was that guilt attached. You know, they lost their kids to, you know, drunk drivers or to cancer or what have you. But, you know, it's that stigma of he chose this.
Right. Right.
And, you know, and at the time I wasn't strong enough to argue. No, my child didn't want to die.
Right.
He just wanted to not hurt
He was hurt.
anymore.
He was sick. So I know I said that I knew this was going to be a tough episode for me because, you know, we've been friends since 9th grade. So I just remember little Kameron, you know. But in addition to Kameron, you have a daughter. So how do you as a mom grieve while still trying to be supportive for your daughter, while still trying to go through a divorce? And then how do y'all like turn back and try to lean on each other and put your differences aside for the moment because, you know, we're here now.
Right. Oh, Lord. And it's been tough because Aaliyah and Kameron kind of had a tumultuous relationship, one, you know, boy, girl.
Right.
And unfortunately, it never got to that point that we can, you know, see now that at some point your sister who you couldn't stand becomes your best friend at some point. But unfortunately, they weren't able to get that. And then also because throwing the dynamics of the situation in in my marriage, you know, Kameron at some point again he left.
Right.
And so with Aaliyah, she felt like he left her, you know, in the situation. And so unfortunately, she still has all of this that she's dealing with. So she's very angry right now.
Yeah, her anger and her you know, regret.
Yeah. And I'm in a position where I'm trying to protect her feelings, but when she's angry and lashing out at Kameron's not here to defend himself. So I find myself trying to defend him, which of course, she feels a certain way.
Right.
You know, he made this decision, but I'm still here, but you're still protecting him.
Right.
You know, and I think also with her, it's kind of this built up because we're talking about Kameron and because of course, we're remembering the good things about Kameron and not talking about, you know, the negative things.
Right.
And she feels a kind of certain way about that too. You know, it's like we put him on a pedestal. So it's tough. And she was living with me until recently. And so we decided that she would get her own place because our grief was so intertwined.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was having a bad day, she was having a good day, but then I brought her down and vice versa. And so we're thinking that space would kind of give us the opportunity to heal and grieve in our own way. And so that we can work together to, you know, be what we need to do for each other, but not necessarily carry the burden for the other person in a time that we can't.
And I know just when you said that, I know this is another conversation and I would love to have you back on to talk about this, but how as parents, we don't, how can I say this? As parents, we don't realize how much our relationships, our marriages are harming our kids. And sometimes we say, and even myself, I'm divorced, but you know, when I realized, you know what, this is a wrap, but I didn't make it a wrap because I said, well, I need this to work for my kids. So I'm going to endure for my kids. And I realized then, you know, thank God I finally woke up and realized, you know what, this is probably doing more harm than good. But just talking about the dynamics of our kids really watching us and taking on the stuff that we're putting on for them and how, you know, they're not able to deal with that. We're adults and, you know, even though we're thinking, oh, well, we've been together for this long, we're going to ride it out. And it's like, no, it's just not what it needs to be. But that's definitely something we can come back and talk about. So I want to go to Dr. Smith because, like we said, that was your child. That was your baby. So being mental health professional, you are a therapist in private practice. This is your arena. Let's talk about how you feel. What
I lost all sense of skill set, theory, approach, practice, everything all at one time. It's easy to tell your clients, you should do this, 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 and this. But when you encounter something such as this, you connect on a whole different level that you never understood. Right. So in full transparency, I stopped counseling for extended period of time. Honestly, I'm still not providing therapy the way I had in the past prior to losing him. And it's because I felt for a period of time as if here I am, a therapist that sees all the signs, that knows all the signs, all of the things, and I couldn't see it in him, right? Because we were so close in age, we had a really good relationship. He would talk to me about stuff. I called him the great debater. He would argue with me about everything, and I would be like, boy, shut up. Like it was, we had that relationship. But one challenge of being an aunt when you're so close in age is you also want to respect their privacy. You also want to respect their growth. And it was information that my sister would share with me that I would be like, he haven't told me that.
Right. So I can't
say nothing about it. I'm feeling kind of way about it, but I can't say nothing because I want to respect that he is an adult. And not only is he an adult, but I want to respect the fact that he shared that information in confidence with his mom. And if he wanted me to know, he would have told me, although we tell each other pretty much everything. Right. But so I battled with that because it was things that I heard that I'm like, I need to reach out. I need to talk about it. But then it was that, but if I reach out, he knows that she told me.
He's not going to feel comfortable talking to her.
So I was so caught up in how it was going to leave him to feel that I missed out on so many valuable moments to hold conversations with him that he would have been more open with me because we had that relationship, right? That he would talk to me on that level, but instead those were missed opportunities. So for me, that's where the struggle came in. And even after receiving that phone call from her, I literally sat in my office and I just sat there and I was like, he good, he okay. And it took me forever to get up out of my seat. My husband was home that day and I went to him and I couldn't say a word. I just collapsed onto him. And he was, what's wrong? What's going on? What's happening? And it took me forever before I could communicate it. And as soon as I could, we were up and we were in the car and we were going. And of course, they got to the hospital before me. My mom called and I just screamed the rest of the way to Huntsville. And I just sit there and I think about knowing him. This wasn't anything that he planned, right? Although he had ideation and he had thoughts and all of these things, that day, whatever occurred with him that day, he couldn't push through. He couldn't pick up the phone and call and say, this is what I'm going through. I need you guys in this way, right? We have to remember that not all suicide attempts or completions are centered around a plan. It's something that has occurred that at that moment in time, we just recently went to a conference and they said within a day, we encounter 70,000 thoughts, right? And the majority of those 70,000 thoughts are going to be negative, right? So it requires, if you're in that place and space already, and these thoughts are coming nonstop towards you, at that moment in time, you don't see a way out, right? And you make decisions that ultimately many can't take back. Once it's done, it's done. So me as a therapist, I'm mindful now of every person that I touch, not just as a therapist, but as a human being.
Person,
That when I approach people now, I approach them in a different way because you may be the only person that they come in contact with that day that puts a smile on their face or gives them hope or a reason to be able to push past whatever they had going through that day. I'm very intentional when people cross my mind, no matter what it's for, I send a text, hey, just checking on you. Or I can see something because that was another thing. He posted something that said, it's hard to I can't remember the exact words, but it was centered around what you know and what you feel. Right? And I sat up there and I thought about it because that post I liked.
Right.
Right?
Not even realizing
that that was another outcry where he's saying, I'm struggling. I know this, but I feel this and I'm struggling with this. We come across things on a consistent basis and we like it or we, type.
Or we can relate to it. I can feel it.
Yeah, I feel it. So yeah, I'm going to like that. But not realizing that was a cry within itself that I didn't pick up the phone and say, hey, baby, you good? So now I'm very intentional. I'm very rarely on social media. But when I am and when I come across something, people will tell you. They'll get a direct message. You good?
Yeah.
You okay? If I have your number, I'm calling you or I'm texting you because I want to make sure that if no one else has seen you in that way, I want you to know that I see you. And that could make the world a difference. I'm a person that sends out these things early in the morning, have a great day, love you, blah, 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 blah. That very day, I sent it to everyone but my nieces and nephews.
That day.
And I struggled with that because I said, that text could have made a difference for him that day. He needed that day. And because they look at my text sometimes and be like, oh, she getting on my nerves. Right.
We the old auntie.
We the old, here she go with this again. I left it alone. And that was the day that he needed the most. So it just reminds you as individuals to be mindful of that. We get so caught up in our own stuff because at that time, like my sister said, I was battling breast cancer. That was another stressor for me. And I told my sister, I was like, I feel so bad, but that was me going through my own grief at that time. I said, it should have been me. And she said, no, it shouldn't have been you. But that's where I was. At that particular point, I was like, I was so focused on me. So focused on trying to push through and do all of those things that who and what I had been to him for so long, I couldn't be because I had my own fights, right? That I was trying to fight through. So it just reminds you that no matter what you're going through, people that you love and you care about and people that, we're all going through things. And it's the smallest and the simplest things that you can do that can positively impact someone. He wouldn't have wanted to be here, like she said,
no, absolutely.
in a state of pain or hurt or anything. And one thing that, in thinking about him, that I can say, he was unapologetically him, and he lived his young life, those 29 years, to the fullest. So those are the things that keep me going at this stage in time, because I'm sitting here thinking about things that this boy went out and did that me, as a 41-year-old, I haven't experienced and honestly probably never will, because I used to be like, boy, you crazy as hell.
Right.
But at the same time, he lived his life to the fullest. So although it was short, right, he did experience things that were significant and big. And although he had pain and trauma and all of these things that he dealt with, I feel like his story can open the doors for so many other individuals by us doing the things that we're doing current day in order to have that impact on others. Although we encountered the pain, someone else along the lines of later on won't have to experience that because we did.
I'm gonna say y'all are truly just resilient. I just couldn't. So just y'all strength and even talking about this is amazing. What is something that you want Kameron to be remembered for? I know when we talk, you're like, and this is something else that people probably need to pay attention to. Although he had his struggles, he was still the life of the party, very social, always wanting the family to get together. And so I remember when we talked shortly after, and we had that conversation, it made me think of my baby, who you were in the hospital with when I had him, who's now 21, almost 22 years old. He is a it's always wanting to be around. Like, can we have this dinner? Can we have this? And then so talking to you now, every time that boy says Sunday dinner, can we do this? I'm like, I don't care how tired, we doing it because I don't know. And as social as he is, as much as he hangs out with his friends and he's the life of the party amongst his circle of friends, we don't know what they're dealing with.
Right.
You know, that's the front that they're putting on
Right.
because, hey, maybe is it going along with that whole stereotype that the black men are supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be able to handle this. You're not supposed to have any mental health issues. Toughen up, tighten up, you know, you be all right. Be a man, be a man, be a man.
Right.
And so they're trying to be what the whole world wants them to be, and they're hurting. So just the fact that knowing how close y'all were, that he knew I can call my mama. I can text my mama. My mama told me anytime, day or night, call. My mama gonna answer. My mama gonna answer. So even if it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just knowing that he felt safe to call or to talk, because so many black men, black boys don't have that person, or they don't want to feel like they're soft.
Right.
You know, they don't want to feel that. And even after we talked like 2 weeks ago, immediately after we hung up the phone, I just got on Facebook and I saw something one of our classmates posted,
that.
and I screenshotted it because it was like, damn, we literally just talked about black men and how they are trying to carry so much and they don't talk, and nobody's there for the black men like we want the black men to be there for us. And so this is a classmate of ours who's always the class clown, always getting everybody in trouble, including me. And he just came out and said, you know what? For 20 years, I've struggled with this. And I don't even know the purpose of me writing it now, right here. But I just feel like if anybody else is going through this, just know that, you know, I'm going through it too. And so many people were commenting like, you know, I felt two ways about the comments that were going on. One, I was, as a mental health advocate, I was so happy that people were saying, we support you. Me too. Thank you for giving us this space, or saying it, because now that somebody else has said, I now have the courage to say it too. It doesn't look like I'm going to be emasculated for saying that, you know, there's the area of weakness that I'm struggling with. But then the other thing that I struggle with as a mental health advocate are the number of people that said, be strong, fight through. And it's like, can y'all stop saying that? And I told him when I messaged him, like you said, I inboxed him immediately when I saw that post, because we always share memes and joking and stuff like that. I never would think that you're having these struggles, right? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to tell you to be strong. I'm not going to tell you to fight through. I'm going to tell you, like you told your baby, I don't care if we graduated 25 years ago, we still talk. Call me, reach out to me, send me a meme, let's talk, do something, because you get tired of fighting.
Right.
You get tired. And it's just, I want people to think of this like any other thing, all right? If I'm a track star and I'm running, I'm going to get tired. Even though this is what I can do best, I'm going to get tired. If I'm in a marriage and I love, and I'm fighting, I'm going to eventually burn out and get tired. It's the same thing when it comes to mental health.
Absolutely.
And so, especially when I advocate for black girls, black boys, but it's men, I'm like, y'all are dealing with so much unhealed trauma.
Absolutely.
From your childhood and, you know, your teenage years and your young adult. You're not healed, but you're bringing other people into the world, you know, with the same stuff that you're carrying, and you're passing that on to them. And it's like, no, we need to like pause. I want everybody to take a pause on reproducing, and let's heal, let's fix what we have going on. So I love that you know, he has that opening, and I want us to try to create a safe space for black men to feel like they have an opening. You know, we got into this conversation. I don't know if y'all saw the whole Tyler Perry debacle that went on this weekend about him saying, you know, if a man, all he can do is come to you and pay the light bill, then, you know, accept him at what he is. And so then you get into this conversation about, well, we got to stop supporting that this is the best you can do. You know, or you get into the conversation where it's like, okay, well, black woman, it's your job and your role to heal them. And it's like, no, it's not, but it could be my responsibility to make sure that they are in connections with the people that can, because I'm an empath myself. And so I take on everything you tell me, I'm going to take it on, and I'm going to carry it, and I'm going to try to fix it for you. I'm going to try to figure out something I can do to fix it for you, not realizing, girl, you don't have the room on your plate to be taking on other people's things. And I think that's a lot of times, a lot of black men feel like that. Like you said, you were going through cancer treatment and everything. So maybe he felt like, I don't want to dump on you. You got enough going on. Mama going through a divorce. I don't want to dump on her. And it's like, in these situations, baby, dump on me.
Yeah, I will say, I haven't heard exactly what Tyler Perry says, but I think I also think because Cameron and I had a conversation about that as being a young black man, and Cameron dated mostly Hispanic women, and one because he had that natural, that was his thing. I remember him being 5 years old in kindergarten in love with this little girl that looked like Jennifer Lopez. And so, people always ask me, was I offended because that was his attraction, because as black women, we take it as, what's wrong with him? Why doesn't he want someone that looks like his mom? But we, as an adult, we had the conversation of how he was not accepted by black women because he was a public servant. He had a master's degree, but that master's degree only earned him around, 40, 50,000 a year. And so he was around women who wanted that baller, the one that was driving, the fancy car. He drove a Malibu, and so his thing was, Mama, they don't accept me. And so that really gave me a different perspective, and it also changes my mindset because I didn't date. I've been divorced since 2017, but I was separated long before that. So for 12 years, I haven't dated. And so I remember the week prior, we had the conversation of he said, Mom, you deserve love. And you deserve a man that's going to treat you the way that you need to be.
Because you've been with his dad since high school.
Since middle school. And so he said, and I remember joking. I said, yeah, baby, we're going to both find, our person, and we're going to have a double wedding. And so that's how the conversation ended. And so now when I go out into the dating world, I'm keeping that in mind. Cameron was 5'7", so he wasn't 6 feet tall. He didn't have, 6 figures. And so, but I know his heart, and I know what a good man he was, and that he would have made a woman a good husband. And so that changes my mindset because I want someone now that's going to protect my heart. Ideally, I'm 5'5". Can you at least be 5'6"?
Right.
So I can put on heels and not tower over you. But it's really changed that perspective. I'm not out there looking for, a 6 foot man that's 6 figure. But can he protect my heart? Can he treat me the way my baby treated me? Because he was that guy. We talked every day. He got off work at 5 o'clock. By 5:05, I had that call. We were talking on the way home. If he missed me in the next 2 hours, he was calling. He called Avis, Mimi, where's my mom?
Baby. I will never forget. He called me. He was blowing up my phone. I was at work. I was like, what? Are you okay? Have you talked to my mama? And I said, no, what is going on? No, I've been calling her all day and I can't find her. And I said, okay, let me try to find her. Calm down. I'll try to find her and I'll give, and I'll tell her to call you. So I texted her or called her or something. I said, can you please call your child? He is having a fit. But it was one of those things, 24 hours couldn't pass without, look, have you talked to my mama?
Where's my mama?
Yeah. And again, that was the hard thing because when Cameron made that decision, it was 17 days before my birthday. And he knew July is the only time that I ever made things about me. I was 35, I think, before I had my first birthday party. And at that point, I was like, July is my month to be selfish.
Right.
And so when it happened in July, I was like, again, was he mad at me?
Right.
Why would he do that in July? But, it just goes back to say, you asked earlier, what do we want to remember Cameron as? And so I'm living my life as I saw him because I wasn't that bold person. I couldn't take risks because I had 2 kids to feed and take and provide for and didn't have a dependable spouse.
Right.
So all of my life was playing it safe and not being fearful, but he was always motivated me. Like I said, he said, you're going to find you someone to love you. You're going to step out of here and you're going to use the work that you put into getting that mental health cert license, and you're going to utilize that. So that's what the last 3 years have been about. In 2021, I said, I'm going to live this year in boldness, and that's when, basically he passed July 2020 in September, Suicide Awareness Month 2021. I called Avis and I said, this is the day. This is the day that I'm going to stop living in fear. This is the day I'm going to stop hiding. I'm going to free myself from this shame and guilt. And I'm going to tell his story the way it needs to be told, you know, because again, in Huntsville, the mindset is my baby killed himself because of a woman.
Right.
But I have the truth of who he was. And that was a piece of the puzzle. You know, that didn't tell his full story. And so now I'm in control of that. I'm going to tell his story because he's not here to tell it. And so I've seen me transform into this boldness and being very intentional about how I you know, I just got back into the dating world and, you know, I was
welcome. How's that?
You know, actually I'm dating consistently one person at this point.
Okay.
And the irony of that situation is Cameron's birthday was December 5th. His is December 9th. Cameron was a debater. He's a debater.
Okay.
So it's been really twofold in the sense that everything I missed in that relationship with Kameron, this man is providing. But again, he's not that 6 foot, you know, athletic body type person. But I think it's just, even if this goes nowhere,
right,
it's just a reminder of you can find someone that's going to care for your heart. And the way they care for you, the way I cared for you is what's important.
Right.
And so I need to focus on that.
That's good. I love that.
Yeah.
So in response to Cameron's passing, as you're speaking, you turned your grief into action and established a foundation in his honor. So could you tell us more about the mission and goals of the foundation and then what inspired you to create? I think you kind of answered that a little bit, but let's talk back about it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the foundation is called A Bold Story Never Ends. And as we spoke before, Kameron lived in boldness. And so Avis and I and Aaliyah, we were sitting around one day and I told them, I said, I need to find purpose in this. I need to find, you know, I can't just have this testimony and just tell this story and leave it at that. You know, I need to be able to impact lives with this. And I need people to know who Kameron was. You know, so basically we were sitting around and I was like, what do we need? What are we going to call this? You know, and all three of us kept coming back to bold. And then Aaliyah said, well, why don't we call it A Bold Story Never Ends? Because even though Kameron made that decision that day, his story doesn't end there. You know, who he was, and he was a person that was always motivating. You know, like I said, we're his elders, his mom and his aunt, but he's telling us, you know, you need to get out there and use that license. You need, you know, you worked on this degree, you need to utilize it in more than what you're doing. And so we decided to develop the nonprofit. We named it, Aaliyah came up with the name. So we named it A Bold Story Never Ends. And the mission is basically, one, to honor Cameron's life. You know, again, we want to motivate other people. We want to educate. We want to tell people that people struggle. And one, you mentioned it before, you said about being strong. You know, we imply that if you continue on, you're being strong, which also implies that if I'm struggling, I'm weak. You know, and I can't let that message go that my son was weak because he made this decision. Weakness was the total opposite of what he is. And so I need people to know that. And so when I go out and I speak on the topic and I remind them of who he was, you know, that's a part of what we're trying to do, as well as also connect with the next man or woman or child that's struggling to know that you are not alone.
Absolutely.
You know, we're here to listen. We're here to connect you with services. And so basically we're advocacy, but we're also serving as that link to connect people with the services that will help them through their struggle.
So that was my next question. I wanted to know, like, what specific initiatives or programs can you link people with, or are there any specific that you guys are implementing? Like maybe it's something that you wished other places had, or this small little component that this person or this group could have, but now I want to implement that within our program. So is there anything specific to A Bold Story Never Ends that you're implementing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, although we had this vision shortly after losing Kameron, one big thing that we talked about regrets earlier, was Kameron wanted our family to do a walk. He wanted us to sign up and do a 5K. And so his first birthday, we celebrated him by hosting a 5K. And so so it's grown. So we've only really been a nonprofit since November of this year.
Okay.
So we're still very new. But ideally, I think, and then one of the next ways we decided to honor Kameron is because he was such an advocate for education. Like I said, he was at 25 he had his master's degree, and so I thought of creating a scholarship in his honor. So we have the Bold Story Never Kameron Weaver Bold Story Never End Scholarship Fund, and we the first year we were able to award it to 3 students.
Wow.
This year we were able to do one because of course everything is funding related,
right?
And so we want to do that. We want to first of all catch those kids as they're graduating and honor them, one, for they going through their mental health struggles, because we're looking for kids who have gone through some type of adversity and who want to pursue their education. And so we're doing that. We also this month we're also doing a suicide awareness event called Together We Are Stronger. Okay. That's on the 30th of this month. It's going to be at Kitty Hollow Park in Missouri City.
Can you tell us more about what's going on with that?
Yeah, so basically we want to bring awareness, one, to suicide, but we also understand the importance of connection. And so that's what it's about. It's a family fun day. And so all family members are encouraged to come out, 0 to 100. We're going to have games and activities for the kids and families to engage in, but we're also going to have separate presentations. We have a presenter who also lost both her brother and her mother to suicide related concerns. And so she's going to come out and talk about suicide in adolescents. We have another person speaking on self-care, because that's a big piece. A lot of it is we're not caring for ourselves, and not just our bodies, but our minds and our spirits. So she's going to address that. And then we have a gentleman who also attempted suicide, but thankfully he wasn't successful. So we're going to have him come out. He wrote a book from the perspective of the person who attempted. And he's been truly a blessing. I can't tell you the number of people that have come into my life. And that, again, was that missing piece of why did he do this and was he mad at me? And so just this week alone, this gentleman, our paths crossed, and he was able to talk to me, and he said, "Mom, he could not think about you in that moment." And he said, but he did think about you by sending that text to let you know that he loved you and that it wasn't about him, because if he was mad at you, you wouldn't be the only person that he sent that text to. So that has been tremendously healing.
Comforting, yes.
Yes, because I've carried that for 3 years. What did I do wrong? So God is definitely placing these people in my life and giving me what I need to heal. But in that process, I'm also able to speak to this for the next mom whose child may not have completed suicide, but who has attempted. And so, or who has these thoughts. And so really working with them, and so basically the event is about, like I said, connection, connecting with other people in the community, connecting with your family, setting out this designated time just to focus on your family, to learn activities and strategies that you can take back, and to help hopefully improve the overall mental health of everyone within the family. And so, like I said, we're going to have different games and activities to play, and we're going to have the presenters, and then just opportunities to network with people and have and start those conversations.
So you mentioned earlier about being ashamed and embarrassed to say this is what happened to my baby, and so suicide is often a stigmatized topic. So can we talk about how it makes it challenging for people to seek help, and then how your foundation is working to reduce the stigma around mental health issues and suicide?
Okay, I think one is I've been very vocal, since 2021 about my story. I go on and share videos, the podcast, and being open so that hopefully it will encourage others who are having these thoughts, or even who has a child, to not dismiss it away, because that's another piece of it. It's like my child comes in and says that, "Oh, you be okay, you just being dramatic," and so just to be aware that when your child comes to you, because it takes a lot to even have those conversations. One, you need to listen, and two, what do you do when you listen? Because that's another piece. Who do I reach out to? As I said before, I'm a mental health professional, and I couldn't connect my child with a therapist. And so we're also working with therapists. My goal is, again, we haven't gotten to this point, but I want to have a list of providers in the area that we can connect that person to. So I'm not just handing them over a list and saying, here are resources, but this is someone who's going to pick up that phone and be able to take you and to have, to provide those services with you. And so ultimately, we have the academic scholarships, but I also want to provide scholarships for mental health treatment.
God, that is so important.
And so that I network with these therapists and they give me a flat rate and we can offer, a $1,000 or $2,000 scholarship to pay for those initial sessions to get that person connected.
Wow. That's awesome.
Another thing is, as we're laying the foundation, the biggest thing is suicide is a huge component of our reason why, right? But even bigger than that is focusing on the overall mental health of individuals within our community. Because as you said, mental health has had this stigma where people don't find it necessary to talk about what they're feeling or what they're going through, especially within the Black community, right? So my role in the foundation is Director of Mental Health Initiatives, right? And the vision centered around that is going to be to create initiatives centered around growing our community to connect with the fact that it is okay to not be okay, right? Creating opportunities, like she said, for connecting them with resources, but also having programs and things centered around being able to come in and learn more about coping skills and strategies for parents to be able to get trainings on what are the signs, what are the things that we should be looking for, how to hold effective conversations with our kids. Like there are so many different things that you can do that will have the impact on growing our kids into well-rounded, emotionally sound individuals. And that's something that we have to continue to focus on as we move forward in keeping Kameron's memory alive, but also making the impact on others that come behind him.
So what are your hopes? You just, I guess, talked about some of them, but what are your hopes and aspirations for the foundation's future? And then how do you envision making a lasting difference in the lives of school-aged children, young adults, teenagers who are suffering with mental illness, suicidal ideations, attempts, and then parents with completions, unfortunately?
My hope is that A Bold Story Never Ends grows into something that is so much bigger than us, right? Where it begins to positively impact the lives of individuals within our community. And along the way, if we can make that difference for one person, it would be enough.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my hope, to be able to get individuals that are in, because it's not just about us. We're constantly looking for volunteers and people to come in the way that they know how. Right. Because everyone has their strength. Everybody has their superpower. So if everybody comes in with that one thing that could impact the success of what it is that we're attempting to do, I feel that our mission is complete.
And definitely just to destigmatize mental health in general. Another big part with my daily post is about my grief journey, because that's another piece that we make people feel bad about.
Yeah.
You have until the funeral. And then, because your village rushes in, they feed you, they care for you. But after the funeral, you're supposed to wake up and you're supposed to get back to life. And so I want to normalize that it's okay to cry 3 years later. Yeah. It's okay to cry 10 years later. Now, we don't want you stuck in that where you can't exist, where you can't work, but you may need a mental health day.
Yeah.
You may need a day where your only goal is to breathe during that day.
Right.
So if you need to spend that day crying, it's okay. And we want to even with mental health diagnosis, we have a condition called prolonged grief. So at some point in our minds, it becomes a mental health concern that you're grieving after a 6 month to a year period. But I loved my child for 29 years.
Right.
I'm not going to forget him in 6 months or a year. So I want to, like I said, I'm very open and transparent in those conversations because I want people to don't tell me to get over it.
Don't.
Please don't.
Please don't.
Please don't compare your divorce to the loss of my child. Please don't compare the loss of your mother to my child. Because even though they are both significant and they are both impactful, you have not experienced my loss.
Right.
And this is not the natural order of things. I should not have had to say goodbye to my child. You know, so I want to normalize those things. I want to, you know, I want to suicide not to be a naughty word. Because if we can't talk about it, we can't change it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want a mother to live in 3 years of shame. Because she is questioning how she mothered or what she did. So I want to normalize this in the sense that what you're feeling is okay.
I think when we had the therapist on for mental health in our Black girls, she described something to me, and I take that into consideration now with my daughter, who I've called you a couple of times, like, girl, come get this girl, because, baby, this is not what the Lord had meant for me. But even when talking about our students and anxiety or depression or things that they feel, she described this perfectly. She said, it's a hurt, and they can't tell you where, what, why, how, but it hurts. And they can't get you to see that they're hurting because you can't see it. But like you said, they feel it, you know, and I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't have I'm not at the age or mental development where I can try to figure it out, but I'm hurting. It's something in me that does not feel right. And so understanding now, I teach middle school. I've been teaching middle school for all my life, but teaching middle school and being empathetic and sympathetic to the struggles that these kids are dealing with, even though they're not my struggles, even though they're struggles that I didn't deal with at their age, learning so much, even, watching your pages, just learning so much is teaching me, like Dr. Smith said, just how to be a better human and being compassionate that, every kid that walks through my door is dealing with something. And now, we know that these kids are dealing with stuff at their age that we couldn't even fathom dealing with at 13, 14 years old. I, two-parent household, spoiled brat daddy's girl, like you, we both were. I was laughing last week telling the people I was such a spoiled daddy's girl. My daddy knew we were always in trouble, and my daddy was a constable. And so sometimes I drive around that little green turquoise bug and wasn't supposed to be where I was supposed to be, and I come out Chasewood and it'll be a card in my windshield. Like, I see where y'all help us. I see y'all help us. But just being a spoiled brat daddy's girl till the day he passed away 2 years ago, I don't face the challenges. I never experienced the challenges that some of these babies are facing. And so it's teaching me to listen to them. So when they come to me, we could be dead in the middle of instruction. And if I can see the signs now of anxious, when they're anxious, or I can see this, like you said, I know my kids, you walk in and you don't dab me up and do my little hand. What's wrong? I'm just, okay, here, come on. You can go to a counselor. I'm gonna always say we'll deal with this work later. The work will be here because, you may want to talk to me, but there may be something that you don't want to tell me that you feel more trusting telling somebody else. So let's stop what we're doing and let me send you there. When, 10 years ago, oh, babe, you can talk to her on your own time. That would have been me because I was not informed. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. And so I want that to be something that, yes, parents are more educated on, but like we said in the last segment, teachers being more educated on, because if they're hurting, and just because we don't feel the hurt, we don't see the hurt, or we don't see why they should be hurt, that don't mean that they ain't hurting.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we provide those things for them. So I want to talk about, lastly, how our listeners, if we want to get involved or support your foundation, what are the best ways to do so? You mentioned about scholarships, and then I love the idea of the scholarships for mental health therapists, man. I know we had 3 Black men mental health therapists that were on the episode last season who I know would probably, they're going to be like, let me volunteer my services, but who I know would love to get involved in something like this. So, like, how can our listeners, how can anybody just get involved to help on the academic side and the therapy side?
Okay, we have a website, www.abovestoryneverends.org, and on there's opportunities to get in contact with us to volunteer, because that's it. We need the manpower.
Right.
And secondly, we're a nonprofit. We need the funding, so we're creative in the ways that we try to bring in funds. We do have merchandise. We have someone, educator, who makes shirts, and so she's volunteered where half of the proceeds from the shirt go to a Bold Story Never Ends.
Okay.
And so she's basically, like I said, doing it just to cover the materials. So she's, and so we need people who are willing to do that, to provide ways or skills where we can create a product, because unfortunately, a lot of we want to hope that people will just give,
right?
But the reality is, it's always better if they can receive some type of product. So we're still looking for different ways of adding merchandise that people can buy. We of course get straight donations. With this event that we're doing on the 30th, we had Chick-fil-A. I have to give them a shout out. Chick-fil-A Sienna Crossing has told us, they said, I believe in your cause and what you're doing.
Wow.
And if you have 10 people to show up, or if you have 300 people to show up, we're going to feed them.
That is awesome.
So they are going to provide
shout
meals.
out Chick-fil-A.
Yes,
Sienna Crossing. Who owns that? We got to give them a shout out on the site and on the podcast directory. That is awesome.
Exactly. I don't want to misspeak. I believe it's Troy Levine, but let me not say
let's double check.
Yeah, let's double check.
That is amazing.
Definitely.
That's amazing.
Yes. And that's just straight out of his pocket, because we've reached out to other and they said, well, we get hundreds of,
right,
and sorry, we can't help you at this time. So that was truly a blessing.
Okay, so correction, his name is Tony Levine.
Tony. Okay.
And he's at the Sienna Crossing location. We definitely do honor and celebrate him. Not only did he do that, but then he reached out to us, all members of the board, in order to link with us through LinkedIn and all of the things. So if you haven't gone to that location, please go to that location. Please support, because he is definitely passionate about supporting the community, and in return, we're passionate about supporting him.
Absolutely.
Yes,
oh man, I am like, that gave me chills, because these corporations are about themselves, and so for him to say, that's amazing. So let's go back to the 30th. What other immediate needs do you know that you guys will need for that day to make that a success?
Water. He's providing also lemonade and tea, but we have, reality, it's been 90, 100 degree temperatures. So we need water. We need tents that will provide shading for those individuals who are coming out.
Coolers and
ice. Even chairs to give some reprieve. We do have a pavilion rented, but it's very limited space. And so, like the portable chairs or the canopies or tents. We also need, because we have someone who's doing sound bath healing, and we have someone that's going to volunteer their time to do fitness, but we're also want to connect them to services. So if you're a massage therapist, we have an aromatherapist, but any type of healing professions, if you want to come out and do that, we can set you up in booths so that you can provide the information. Am I forgetting anything, Avis?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. One thing that I do want to say is, being mental health clinicians ourselves, if you are a mental health therapist, that this resonates with or that you resonate with this, where you want to step in and assist and support in some way, please feel free to reach out to our organization, reach out to me as the Director of Mental Health Initiatives, in order for us to add you to our list of resources. We're not saying that you should be gifting of your time to the point where everything that you do is free. However, I would love to be able to collaborate with therapists that are willing to support our cause, that are willing, that we can link and connect individuals that need it most with resources of individuals that are ready to pick up the call and be able to provide the supports to the individuals that need them the most. So please, whatever it is, I say all the time, sometimes you don't know what you need until someone presents it to you, right? So if you know that you have a gift and or a talent or a passion, and you're like, this can tie in this way. We know a DJ that comes in and is giving up his time just to provide us with music and enjoy ourselves and things like that. So the sky's the limit. If you can connect with what it is that we are trying to do, and that you can support in the way that you know how, reach out.
Okay. And is this something I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I will say we do have an Amazon gift list.
Okay.
It is links to it are on our website, but we are looking for. Right now, we have approximately 150 people who have confirmed attendance. So we need to keep these people occupied, on that day. So on there are things like different games and, of course, and then after that, we'll need to store this stuff. So we'll need like things like bins to store in. So if anyone could assist with that, that would be awesome. Like Ava said, just mental health professionals that would like to connect with us. And then you may be like I said, a massage therapist, but part of that is going to help, keep people. So if you want to connect with us and do that, and also presentations, part of it is being out there to spread the word. So if you want someone on our team to come out and speak at your school or at your church or at an event, I'm going to be doing a Masons event in October. And so if you want me to just come out, or a member of our team to come out and speak at an event you may be having, we're also talking about doing some, we just left the Woman Evolve. And so how do we do that on a smaller scale?
Was that yesterday?
It was, this past weekend. Okay. Yeah. So, and we have someone that shares a venue. I got to give a shout out to Elevate Creative Studio, because they've given us vendor opportunities to come out and speak. But she's also letting us use her space to host, events. And so if you have that connection,
spaces, vendors, event spaces.
Yeah. So if you can donate something like that to give to us so that we can host some of our initiatives, that would be a great support.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all so much. I told y'all I was so nervous about this because I was just like, it still feels like so sudden and so soon, but I'm so happy that y'all came out and shared y'all story. And we definitely want to do everything we can to make your event on the 30th a success. Is this something that you're thinking about doing annually?
Yes, we do have an annual event. As I mentioned, we've been celebrating Kameron's birthday in December, so we're doing it a little different this year, and we're doing it for Suicide Awareness Month, and so that's how we're doing this event. But yeah, we'll definitely have some type of yearly event. We still haven't had our inaugural debut as an organization, so we'll be planning something like that, like more maybe a black tie or mixer or whatever that may look like. So that'll be coming soon. But definitely we'll keep everything on our website, and then we also have an email distribution. I send out a monthly newsletter. And so if anyone wants to sign up for that, just so that they can keep abreast of what we're doing.
Okay. And then you mentioned earlier that you have a podcast. Can you talk briefly about that, and then I'll let you wrap?
Well, I'm actually working on the podcast right now. Okay. It's me in my, in my office, just sharing my thoughts. But yeah, that is definitely a hope of mine, that I can create a podcast where I can go and express these topics and invite other people in to bring more awareness.
So awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I sure thank y'all so much for coming and spending the morning with me on y'all Good Sunday.
Well, thank you.
And thanks for telling Kameron's story. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having us.
All right.
What I would like to say to you, though, is thank you.
Are you about to get mushy? Because we don't do this.
No, I'm not going to get mushy. I'll wait until after your text message or something. But what I will say is thank you. I see your passion. You are committed to not just mental health advocacy, but your passion for education as a whole. So continue to let your light shine. You are doing amazing things, and I'm so proud of you. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. That's it. We'll see y'all next week. This podcast was made possible by producer extraordinaire D. Francis at the legendary Lab 7 Studios in Mo City, Texas.